All right, so let's talk about CNN. Minutes after we finished recording our oh my God, Tucker Carlson's been fired segment yesterday, we get the notification that, oh my God, Don Lemon is actually on at CNN. That, as we discussed at the beginning of the show, is why Saagar is wearing this absolutely ridiculous outfit.
Yeah, look at this. This is not meant to be done, people. It's never meant to be done.
I'm not gonna lie, it genuinely looks terrible. So what's interesting is even on the way out, it was kind of ugly and messy over at CNN. So Don Lemon put out a statement that was complaining that after all these years of service at CNN, that they didn't tell him personally, that they told him through an agent. CNN did not appreciate this tweet that he put out, and so they put out their own comments here. Put this up on the screen. So initially, if you look at the bottom, this is what they put out initially. Initially, it's this very diplomatic, CNN and Don have parted ways. Don will forever be a part of the CNN family. We thank him for his contributions over the past 17 years. We wish him well and we'll be cheering him on in his future endeavors. Then, after he puts out his catty, aggrieved statement, then they come back with, Don Lemon's statement about this morning's events is inaccurate. He was offered an opportunity to meet with management, but instead released a statement on Twitter. We also have some reporting about exactly what went down with Don Lemon, and some of this has been visible for anyone who has been watching their poorly rated, terrible morning show, which is that his female co-hosts, Caitlin Collins and Poppy Harlow, hate his guts, and for good reason, because he doesn't know how to play well with others. Look, it is a very different deal when you have your own show and you can do with it what you want and you can take up as much space and as much airtime as you want. But as someone who has co-hosted with a lot of people, not all of whom are as wonderful to work with as Saagar, if you have someone in that role who wants to hog up all the space and not let anyone else in, it becomes a very tense situation amongst the co-hosts, and it becomes very tense for the audience to watch. Because they can feel that friction and that tension. Who wants to start their day with this weird, underlying psychodrama that's going on? So apparently, let's put this up on the screen from the New York Times. They had some reporting about exactly what was going on behind the scenes. They say Don Lemon ousted from CNN in move that left him stunned. Hours before those dueling statements, he was on air in his usual anchor chair. He showed no signs of knowing what was about to happen. At the end, he signed off to viewers with a smile and a friendly bye, everybody. But they said in recent weeks, CNN's bookers had discovered some guest didn't want to be on the air with Mr. Lemon. Research on the morning show reviewed by CNN executives found his popularity with audiences had fallen. And on Wednesday, he made headlines again after a highly contentious on-air exchange with Vivek Ramaswamy, a Republican presidential candidate. Segment deteriorated as the men fiercely debated questions of Black history and the Second Amendment. Mr. Lemon's co-anchor, Ms. Harlow, could be seen sitting silently beside him, at times casting her gaze elsewhere and scrolling through her smartphone. I want to show you guys a little bit of this. They go on to say that incident left several CNN leaders exasperated. I want to show you a little bit of this incident, not because of the content of the debate, which in my opinion, both of them lost for various reasons, but because you can see on Poppy Harlow's face and her body language and what she is doing there, just how much she hates the situation she's in. Take a look at a bit of this.
Black people, hang on, please. I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that black people, say what you said again.
Historical fact,
it's
but
not historical fact.
The part that I
Just
find
because you say it's historical fact.
The part that I find insulting,
black man. It's insulting that you're
me regarding
sitting
you
here,
as a fellow citizen.
That you're
That's what I think
sitting here,
we should see.
whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me.
What forward to continue that conversation.
We'll
Thank
continue
you.
the conversation.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Papa.
We'll talk about China.
Yes, let's talk about China.
Next time you come back.
Oh, thank you. Much to say on declaring independence from China.
Okay,
something you
can
can
we
add
move on now, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh boy, her face, if you're just listening, stone face the whole time.
I feel really bad for her.
She looks, I mean, I've been in that situation. I know exactly what it feels like. When she had prepared for this segment too, she had things that she wanted to
had
ask
something she wanted to talk
this
about.
presidential contender.
Right.
Clearly she wanted to talk to him about China, which he has made some really, aggressive and kind of out there statements that you could go back and forth and have an interesting exchange on. And instead, Don Lemon decides he's going to take up the entire time with this weird debate this weird, esoteric, historic debate, and what ultimately made for very uncomfortable and not good television. If it was just that exchange, I'm sure no big deal because everybody oversteps them. It's a little, delicate dance you're doing with your co-hosts, et cetera. But there have been so many visible incidents, let alone what we don't know behind the scenes. And clearly, they decided this man is getting paid a lot of money, and the guests don't like him, the audience doesn't like him, his co-hosts don't like him. Like, this is supposed to be Chris Licht's new flagship show. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just psycho because, when you respect somebody, it's like, Chris, when we interview people and you want to ask a question, I'll look at you and be like, okay, cool. Same vice versa. I'll be like, hey, I have a follow-up. I'll like put a finger up or something like that. Both have things. We'll even talk about it a little bit before. This man has no respect for his co-host. And I honestly am going to, and look, I am not this guy. I don't think he respects women. I like from the takeaway of that crazy text message scenario whenever he was texting 15 years ago off a burner phone, basically like weird threatening messages because he didn't get a job, clearly coupled with the past your prime comments on top. He's not only a prima donna, I think he is such like an insane misogynist narcissist. And it takes a lot for me to say that, but like I've seen enough.
Yeah.
Like I've seen enough at this point.
Having a little bit of inside CNN knowledge, I think your comments fit with some of the things that I have heard behind the scenes. But I think I think everybody that worked with him couldn't stand him. I mean, that's why the knives came out for him the minute that he was vulnerable here. And again, look, there's another thing to say about this, which is Chris Licht comes into CNN. He's supposed to be turning around the network. He's supposed to be, ushering in a new era, going back to the basics of what made CNN great, et cetera, et cetera. It is the most basic understanding of how to create television, and especially how to create a morning show that people are going to watch. You have to think about who you're putting together and whether they have You can't just slap random 3 anchors together who may or may not be okay on their own and think it's just going to gel and work. It is actually rare to have a situation where you have chemistry with someone, where you have that give and take, where it is comfortable, where you have that good working relationship, where you can disagree at times and debate at times, and you know how to hand off the ball. And all of those things are not a guarantee, far from it. So I also want to say, Don Lemon is Don Lemon. And it was no surprise who this man was before you put him in this slot. It's humiliating for Chris Licht that the morning show thing was supposed to be like what he does. This was supposed to be his specialty. This was his big flagship effort as he took over the network to put his imprint on it. And it just is a complete visible catastrophe. And, to get back to like the tension that was obvious between Don Lemon and his misogyny, as Saagar points out, towards women, what sort of set off this whole chain of events that ends up with him being fired is his comments about Nikki Haley and whether or not she's in her prime. Take a listen to a bit of that.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. It's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. So I got another.
I'm not saying I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that politicians aren't in their prime.
You need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
What the facts are. Google it. Everybody at home. When is a woman in her prime? It says 20s, 30s, and 40s. I'm just saying Nikki Haley should be careful about saying that politicians are not in their prime and they need to be in their prime when they serve, because she wouldn't be in her prime according to Google or whatever it is.
And there were other incidents.
I feel so bad for her. Apparently, she stormed off. She was crying afterwards. Like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like, from a very basic level. Like, even if you believe it, why would you say that to somebody?
Right.
To her face. Her ass is getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I don't know if she has kids or not. That ain't a fun life. It's like, and then basically saying that, like, she's, like, wasting her life or whatever like that to her. It's just really gross.
It is gross. And there was another really visible incident where, again, Don Lemon is acting like this is his show alone.
Yeah. And he's talking over her.
Caitlyn is trying to get in. And just to, like, contribute to, they were, like, talking about Biden was getting off an airplane or something. And Caitlyn covered the White House. So she felt like, okay, this is my time to jump in and sort of commentate this and do this thing. And Don got so irritated with her that she was even trying to be in this segment at all. And apparently there was some ugly scene after the fact that many people were witness to. So in any case, the math just didn't make sense at the end of the day. Whatever, I'm sure they'll probably have to pay him out some settlement as well, pay out his contract, whatever. He probably just signed a new deal when he got put on this morning show, so I wouldn't doubt that he has a number of years left on his contract. But they just looked at the math and they were like, what are we getting out of this situation? Everybody hates this dude. His female co-hosts definitely hate this dude. The show is getting terrible ratings. Why are we going forward with this? And so at the, once they got this research back, apparently that was like, the audience doesn't like him, the guests don't like him, his coworkers don't like him, his co-hosts don't like him. They're like, all right, we're done here.
Well, good riddance, Don. I hope they don't pay him. I think, here was the only thing I enjoyed. He was second-rate news even on the day of his firing. He wasn't at the top of, I checked all the major outlets. He would have been at one point, would have been the front page, but because Tucker was a bigger story, it was everywhere.
Oh,
even in terms of our own viewers,
it's not even close.
Our viewers cared much more about Tucker than Don Lemon. I see it everywhere. So
Can I say, though,
number 2 even on his way out.
I can imagine him having a second act. I could. If he goes back to, remember how he used to do during the Obama era, all that like black respectability,
pull up your
pants and all that stuff. If he leaned into that sort of conservative respectability politics, I could see him having a second act.
It's possible. You said, Krystal, that it was the Prime Video. I think it's the hoodie what did him in.
That was it. That was the end.
I think committing
Beginning
this
of
crime,
the end.
that's what put him over the edge.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.